Hot sports all plays. 365, we're making up plays. We're talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, never the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. Sport all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Hot sports all plays.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
This is your boy, Jay McLovin, filling in for Craig or Pride or all the other experienced ASAP moderators. I'm going to fill in and do the very best I can and not try to feel the pressure. Thank God Logan is here with me. No offense, Jay, but, you know, Logan's my security blanket, my ride or die. I just always feel better when he's on the show. But again, Logan, good morning. Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't disrespect Jay like that. The president, the El Capitan, the numero uno. The guy that writes our non-existent paychecks, Jay Ness.
Sometimes, Jay, I mean, if you don't have orange juice in the morning, all you just need is a Jay McLovin show. And it's a great morning to wake up with, you know, great way to wake up. So... Hey, Logan, since we were going to you anyways, how are you doing, Logan?
Hey, doing good, man. Like you said, man, we don't need a caffeine hit in the morning. We need just a little bit of Jay McLovin sports talk. That's what gets us going.
Not a whole lot, a little bit.
Right.
Just a little bit, yeah.
You know, first thing is, real quick, you know, growing up, they called me Little Bit. The first grade teacher nicknamed me Little Bit because she knew all you need is just a little bit. Anything more than a little bit, you're screwed. Hey, let's talk a little bit about. I just want to talk about Serena for a second. Well, first of all, let me just say a little. We have Gary Greene from Betvegas. He will be joining with us shortly, so you don't want to miss out on that. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, and just to give them a little bit more insight, to those that don't know, Betvegas has been around since 1988. Gary Greene's been doing his thing professionally for a long time. He puts out a weekly sports magazine. So all you sports bettors out there, Gary is on top of it. If you want to make some money this season, you got to get the blue book. I'm telling you, you have to get the book. Gives you all your handicaps. Make sure you're on point with it. And he releases it every week up again, right before the start of the week. So that way, you know, everything that's just happened. If there's injuries, we keep them all updated, and you know, make your money, man. Don't be out here just watching and throwing your money into these apps and not getting anything in return. It looks bad on the taxes, anyways.
Absolutely. Okay, man. Hey, we're gonna do these topics real quick. One of the big things, you know, that I've noticed, and again, I don't know if you guys watch tennis. I got to be honest with you, it's like golf. It's a little slow pace for me. My dad made me watch it on Sundays. I hated it. And until I could start watching football, things like that.
We're talking about tennis, right?
Yeah. Things like that.
Listen, hold on. We cannot.
Hold on.
We
Jay,
cannot start like that.
Jay, no, I'm going to. You know why? I'm going to give her props. Okay?
You give her props.
Jay, you look. Hold on. You the El Capitan, but right now, I'm El Capitan. So just hold on. Guys, I want to just tell you, man, Serena Williams, I just want to give her props, man. Look, this is her farewell tour. This is probably her last damn tournament you're ever going to get a chance to see this woman in. And she's made it to the second round. She's beaten some of the top seeds. She still has to go to the number one seed, but she is literally doing it. This could be her finest performance, her magnus opus, if you will. Logan, I mean, I'm going to go to you first, man. How crazy is it that Serena, at her age, I mean, look, this lady's playing her 40s by now, or at least late 30s, early 40s, and she's kicking the crap out of these younger girls, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking, right, it's shaping up to be one of those storybook endings that we all see in the movies and on TV and whatnot, to where, you know, she gets her last final tournament in, goes for the championship, and hopefully wins it, right? We're all hoping for that. What a great story that would be. And like, you know, our guy Frankie was giving us play-by-play the other night, Jay, and he was saying, it's like, oh, you know, it ain't looking good for her. She's down 3-1. She's putting herself in that lead, like he says, just to kind of get her going. And then through will, just amazing performance, and I mean, being one of the best tennis players of all time, she came back, got that win against a really high-ranked player, and she's got a lot of momentum continuing in this championship, and she's looking really good, though.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's like she found that inner fountain of youth, that inner superstar. And again, these are the elite players, the ones, the LeBron Jameses of the world, the Tiger Woods of the world. I mean, she's just at that level. Jay, I don't know if you follow tennis, but I mean, you got to admit, I mean, it's amazing, the level at which she's playing at her age.
Yeah, no, I mean it's exciting as a Serena Williams fan, as a Venus Williams fan, watching their career, watching them come up, watching them dominate the way they did, and then honestly, I felt like Serena kind of had a bad shake these last 3 to 4 years, 4 or 5 years. The fan base was kind of going at her, for different things. She had a couple of bad performances in a tournament or two, and they were slamming her on it. And it's great to see that, like you pointed out, with her age, and going back. Well, I'm not going to let you slide on that, Jay. Going back, you can't compare golf and tennis. There's no one at the age of golf and Mickelson couldn't come out here and run side to side and do one volley. But it's just crazy. The athletic ability that Serena has at this age that she's at, and then on top of that, for us to be able to witness probably one of the best teams ever to walk into Wimbledon. Between Serena and Venus, that doubles pair is probably going to go down as one of the best, if not for sure the best female pair. But it might go down as one of the best pairs in the history of tennis. And we are really watching, like you said, the farewell tour, and we're watching a legend walk away from the game right in front of us. So these are the times when you, as a fan of sports and really loving the product that you get to see, these are the times where you sit back and you just enjoy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Jay. I think he froze, but I definitely agree with what Jay is actually saying. I know Billie Jean King actually, in an interview when she won in round one, asked Serena, "Hey, are you going to still compete with your sister in the doubles, even though we know you're kind of walking away from, the singles side of things?" And she kind of gave that smirk, that half smile, didn't really answer it, but kind of gave you enough of a cliffhanger to know that I still think we'll see a little bit of Serena with her sister in those doubles. Real quick, hey, I want to slide over real quick. Let's talk about this Donovan Mitchell trade that occurred between Cleveland and Utah. Initially, it was going to be Utah and New York with RJ Barrett, and those talks went pretty late into the other night, up until the point where New York felt like it just wasn't going to happen. I guess maybe Utah was wanting more than they were willing to give. And it turned out to be, that New York gave RJ Barrett the $100 million extension, which, by the way, that type of extension for a guy coming off his rookie contract hasn't happened since 1999 when Charlie Ward was there. So that kind of just gives you an idea of that, number one. Number two, it did matriculate there with Cleveland to the point where they gave up Sexton and a couple of other non-really, in my opinion, non-factor guys. But the biggest thing about it was those 3 first-rounders and there's 2 draft pick swaps that they were able to finagle out of Cleveland what got the trick done. Logan, first of all, what was your thought process on the contract that RJ Barrett got? And secondly, what did you think of that trade that actually did occur between Cleveland and Utah?
Well, as for the trade, or as for the contract extension that he got, glad for him. Like you said, it's been quite some time since the Knicks have done that to a player. Like you said, it's been over 20 years now. So it's been a minute. And RJ's had a pretty good career so far, right? Not superstar level, but it's not like he's unplayable, right? He's obviously one of the best players on the team. I know we all thought that Julius Randle would kind of take another big leap after he had that really good 2020 season, but he just didn't get it going this past year. But RJ's been consistent. You can say that he's been a really good player so far. So I think he deserved that contract. And as for the rumors that the Knicks could have got him, I mean, the Knicks were being asked to give up a lot of their young core because there were multiple packages involved, some of them including RJ Barrett right before he signed that deal, Obi Toppin, and Mitchell Robinson. I mean, those are three of your young guys. Don't get me wrong, Donovan Mitchell's a great player, but I don't know how well it would have worked out if you would have got rid of those three guys, as well as whatever amount of draft picks they would have been asked to give up as well. Who else we could have known, man? The Knicks could have gotten that deal done, and they still wouldn't have made the playoffs this year just with the talent or lack thereof they have around them, just by giving up those three guys. Wow. And so I can see why they didn't get it done. And it doesn't surprise me. It's not like, to me, I don't think the Knicks blew it like we're seeing a lot of people say, because it's not, you've given up Robinson, who's, he's about to get that big contract. It looks like he's got some good potential. RJ, obviously, before he signed, he was looking really good. And then, the Knicks the Knicks are valuing those draft picks right now, because it's not like they're in playoff contention. They need those picks to get better, because for whatever reason, Jay, the free agency, the lore that we've been hearing for years now of, all these big names want to play for the Knicks. They want to go to New York and play. I haven't seen it in years. It's been quite some time. And so I can see why the Knicks rejected the deal. And, as for Donovan Mitchell, he's moving on to a better team now. And I think it's going to be a really good time for him in the new scenery. It's going to really help him out. And as for Utah, I think this will really help speed up their rebuild process.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think, obviously when you give up a guy of Donovan Mitchell's caliber performance levels, and then, you do got the 3 first rounders, you do got a couple pick swaps. That's at least 5 chances to try to recapture what you had in him. Of course, obviously they had the draft picks from help me out, Logan. What's his face? That they just sent to Minnesota. Gobert.
Gobert, yeah.
Man, I went brain dead for a second. So then you got draft picks from Gobert, which I think was 4. Then you got 3 from Donovan, not to mention the 2 pick swaps. So that's like literally 7 chances you got to capture, hopefully something equal to or better than what you had with those 2 guys, and hopefully maybe a couple of role players extra if you're lucky enough, right?
Yeah, and because I remember we were talking about it, man, and there were some scenarios out there where Mitchell was demanding, what was it, like 8 first-round picks or something like that. I'm like, just absurd numbers. And I think he's a good player, but when I hear that, whenever the rumors were he wanted 6 to 8 draft picks or what have you, I don't think of Donovan Mitchell right off my head. I think of like LeBron James and people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, so I guess, it's going to take a little while to see that. On the flip side, you look at Cleveland, and they add Donovan Mitchell to a really good Evan Mobley. Mm-hmm. And then you got Love off the bench and so forth. We know that they made the play-in at the 9th seed last year. We know that they were probably, 9 games out of first. What is your expectation for Cleveland now that they've added Donovan to this rotation? What's the expectation now for them in the East?
I expect a lot clearer playoff berth with a very good team with them, man. They have a good mix of young players and also some veterans as well. And that's kind of something that they couldn't really get going last year. They had mostly young players, right? And it was nice. It was good, but they didn't have that one kind of superstar there. I know Colin Sexton already got his contract extension with the Utah, which is glad for him. But Donovan Mitchell is a little bit better, right? We all know this. And if you add in, like you said, the Kevin Loves, who's a nice vet, who's actually still doing pretty good, putting up good numbers off the bench. You have Rubio there. You have Rondo. Is Rondo? No, Rondo's not. But Rubio, I know is. So you got some guys who know what it takes to play some good playoff basketball. and also that youthful energy that some teams are just missing. That just spark that you need, that energy that you need late in the fourth quarter when your vets are tired, you need to put one of those guys in there. They have that now. And I think they're going to be a really good team this year. I'm not expecting a top finish. Like, I'm not expecting them to be top 3. But I could, honestly, Jay, I could see them maybe sliding in top 5 if everything goes up the plan.
Yeah, it looks like their guards are going to be Mitchell and Garland.
That's going to be good.
Small forward is Osman. Power forward's Mobley. And, of course, Jared Allen is your center.
It's a nice team.
Harris LeVert, Love, Robin Lopez coming off your bench. So, yeah, man, I think that team, I expect them to do good things with the addition of Mitchell. So I think if they don't at least make it in the top 3 and, put some sort of pressure to even, get to the finals, then it's going to look pretty rough for them giving up, all the draft capital that they gave up for him. So we'll see what they can do with it. And we know that they've done it before with Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. Of course, we're not saying that any of those guys are LeBron James, but, we know that they can do it. So we'll have to wait and see. Real quick, turn it over to your boy, Strider. I hope I said his name right. Strider with the Mets. 16 with the Braves. I don't know why I said Mets. With the Braves. The mustache got 16 strikeouts.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Great night, man. And
16.
it was against the Rockies, and I mean, don't get me wrong, the Rockies aren't a good team right now. But you're supposed to have those type of performances against those kind of lower level teams, right? And just a really good night for him overall, man. Because I mean, like you said, the 16 strikeouts set a new record for Atlanta. And especially when you think of all the great pitchers that's been the Braves' history, this is the guy who's on top now. And I think too, Jay, this game maybe solidified his Rookie of the Year status right here, because he's putting up numbers that you haven't seen in quite some time in terms of strikeout rate, in terms of how often he gets guys to get the punch out. It's pretty outstanding, Jay. And I found a stat here. I sent to you guys the other night. Let me find it real quick. But it was talking about how many strikeouts he's had throughout his tenure so far and comparing them to some of the other game's greatest players. Now, granted, we all know Spencer hasn't had a full season like these other great players have. So here it is, Jay. The strikeout pace through about 115 innings pitched, which is what Strider has. So in 115 innings, Strider has 174 strikeouts.
That's incredible.
Nolan Ryan in 1973 had 130 and 115. Sandy Koufax in 65 had 131 and 115. And Randy Johnson in 01 had 171 and 115. All those guys had well over 300 strikeouts if they had a full season.
Right.
I mean, that's in recent memory, right? That's Max Scherzer level strikeouts.
Yeah.
And
absolutely it is.
It would not surprise me one bit if next season, with a full season under his belt, if we see him maybe go for that, just with the amount of swing and misses he's getting and just the nasty stuff he's got. And it was fun to watch, man. I had some friends who went to the game. They said it was just a beautiful performance, and it's looking good, man. It's looking real good over there.
Yeah. Again, I looked at a couple of things that stuck out at me more than the 16 strikeouts. Which, by the way, first of all, to get the win against the Rockies, that is the expectation.
Right.
You get 16 strikeouts against any MLB team. Come on, that's hard. I don't care if it's the A's, the Rangers, whatever. That's a damn hard feat. The win isn't the hard thing, but the number of strikeouts is crazy. And then that's okay. So three things. Number one, that's the one thing. The second thing that pointed out at me was the fact that if you look around all of baseball, you don't see many people completing the full 9 innings.
Yeah,
you don't see that. And so the last thing that stuck out at me was not only did he complete a game, a full 9 innings, but he threw 106 pitches, which is, that's not a whole hell of a lot. When you consider 16 strikeouts, that's not a lot of pitches if you take that into consideration. The second thing is he ended it with 98-mile-an-hour fastball. I mean, come on. Like,
Yeah,
who is this guy? Is he taking some kind of growth hormone pills? Is he taking roids? I don't know. What is he doing, Logan?
I wouldn't say that, Jay. I wouldn't say that. Also, he didn't finish the game. He went 8 innings. They had Jansen come and get the save.
Okay, maybe I read that wrong. Okay.
Now he had 8 shutout innings, so that was nice, and they had Jansen going for the end. But yeah, and like you say, he did it on not that many pitches. Also, if this was, I think what 2J is, if this was an October game, right? If this was a playoff game, you would have kept him in there. But Jansen has been struggling recently, so they figured they'd throw him out there to kind of get him back in his groove, right? So I understand the move, and I would have loved to have seen him, go out there and see how many more he could get. But I can understand the move by Snicker to put in Jansen, who hasn't been as sharp lately, to go in there, get an easy save, and get back on track. But yeah, like you said, that he did all that, and a little bit under or a little bit over 100 some odd pitches. I mean, hats off to you, man. And that's the thing too, is that he was just throwing a lot of strikes. It wasn't like he was throwing a bunch of balls either, like a bunch of late counts. He was getting guys out quick.
Yeah. And again, you really don't want to go past 106. I mean, no pitcher should really go past 106 because you're really putting a lot of wear on that arm, and he's young. So, I mean.
And I think another thing, too, that's impressive, Jay, he didn't have any walks.
Isn't that crazy?
He struck out 16 guys and struck out and gave up 0 walks. He threw, of his 106 pitches, 79 of those were strikes. So he threw about 25 or some odd balls the entire game.
And the balls were most likely just waste pitches to get pitches to get the strikeout. So you got to figure that as well. So, I mean, 2 hits, 8 innings, no walks, 106 pitches. I'm just saying, man, it's impressive. He's going to be one to look out for. And I think I'm telling you, man, listen, I hate the Braves. I can't stand this.
They got some good talent,
I got you, man. Look, if you're not an Astros, I hate everybody.
I understand.
And that's the way baseball
goes. That's just the way fans are,
Yeah, well, I don't know. Nowadays, these fans got 2, 3, and 4, and 5 backup teams. So
I will say, though, Jay, I'm a little bit disappointed in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Man, as a team who is supposed to be beating everyone, you couldn't beat the Mets and help out the Braves? Come on.
Bruh.
Man.
You know what? Is it so hard to ask? But then again, I really need them to lose because I think I'm about 7 games now, probably 6, 7 games out of the top spot. So, yeah, I kind of want them to lose. You know what really kind of makes me mad is the fact that even though the Astros have a better record than the Mets, we are still below them in the power rankings, and we swept their butts, and we swept them. We only played them 1 series, but we still swept them, and they got us underneath them in the power rank. Of course, you got Dodgers, Mets, Astros, Braves. But man, I mean, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, come on, man. The Astros aren't getting no respect. It is what it is. Again, though, how great are your Braves, man? You guys were, dang near on death's door. I thought you maybe squeeze, but you guys have really come on, man. I mean, you guys
we're getting guys back now. I mean, Albies is in rehab, Soroka's in rehab, in AAA, AA. So I mean, they're getting guys back, and if they can't catch the Mets, that's going to suck, obviously. But they've pretty much got that first wild card locked up. I think they're 8 or 9 games above the next team right now. Right. So I mean, a playoff berth is going to be imminent, but. Man, it just seems that whenever the Braves go on a win streak, right, like a 5-game win streak, the Mets then go on a 6-game win streak. They've had a really good year. I mean, hats off to them. They've had a really good season that, this is kind of what they've been expected to do. And it's finally paying off for them this year. But yeah, it's been a good rivalry though. And the Phillies, for a little bit there, they're still fighting for that wild card spot. And, with Harper back and whatnot, they're still trying to hang on. But the East is a pretty tough division with those 3 teams, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of titling this episode of ASAP in the Morning as the episode of the year that history was made. And I say that because, first of all, we're seeing history currently being made with Serena. We'll see if she can complete that history-making effort. Secondly, you got Albert Pujols, who literally just homered off 450 different pitchers in his career. Again, that's history right there. I mean, how crazy? Number one, how crazy is Pujols? 450 pitchers.
That's it. You know, it's wild because some players don't even get to face 450 pitchers in their lifetime, and
That's nuts.
yeah, and I'm curious to see. I don't know the stats top of my head, but I'm curious to see how who is the guy who's given up the most home runs to him, and how many he's gotten.
Oh,
Because I mean, he's played for over 20, or I think this is his 20th year, 21st, and I got 450 pitchers. That's insane.
yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, he's vastly approaching the 700 club, which he will then become the fourth elite member to join Aaron, Ruth, and Bonds. So, I mean, again, he has a chance to make double history. I guess that's just incredible to reach those feats, right? And
right.
So, and then you kind of turn it over and you look at Aaron Justice. Hopefully, he is steroid free. I think he's steroid free. If he is able to catch Roger Maris, which I think he's currently at like 51, 52.
He's got about 10 left, give or take.
Yeah, so he's got about 9 or 10 left to go. If he's able to capture and eclipse 61 and get to 62, non-steroid use, I don't care what anybody says. I got him as a damn champion. But again, there's always going to be that asterisk because Bonds does hold it. Right. But how crazy is it for him to actually pass Maris, and they can actually say that Maris and Aaron Judge both did it non-steroid.
I mean, yeah, that would be wild for Aaron. I mean, it's been a minute since we've seen someone hit 60. I think Stanton had 58, 59 a couple seasons ago, and that'd be great if he does, man. But it's going to be tough. It ain't going to be easy. And as long as he can stay healthy, I mean, he's got a good shot. He's got pretty much a whole month to do it. And I mean, if I'm him, I'm not one to get rested towards the end of the season, right? Because I mean, we see a lot of coaches put their star players, just rest them towards the end of the season, just so they don't get hurt going into October. If I'm Aaron Judge, I don't want that. I want to try and go for that record. Because
absolutely,
that would put him. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great player, but that would put him just a step even higher in terms of Yankees great players. If he were to tie or even pass that, or even get close, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then if he does that, then the next thing he's got to do, he's got to get a championship, right? Because you can't be a Yankee great really if you can't get a championship.
Oh no, you're absolutely you're right. I mean, you've got to have that championship on your resume. There's no doubt about it. Going back to your previous question, in case you are curious, according to Elias Sports, the pitcher that Pujols has the most career home runs off of is, drumroll, Ryan Dempster.
Oh, well, okay, Ryan Dempster, yeah,
who is taken deep 8 times. So 8 home runs.
Ah, okay, wow, okay, only 8.
Yeah. 8 home runs to Ryan Dempster. So if you're wondering who Pujols out of that 450,
it's good for trivia night.
Yeah, man, it's Ryan Dempster. And of course, the last history making thing that I wanted to kind of bring up was Roy McIlroy got his name on the FedEx Cup for a 3rd time, and that is the most times a person has had their name on the FedEx Cup. Tiger got it twice. And I think Mickelson got it twice, but they have not gotten it 3. And McIlroy joined that company and was able to get it on there a 3rd time. So that was a 3rd history-making moment of this year as we are currently here.
Yeah, I mean, just a great feat, and just another one that kind of snuck up on people maybe who aren't too involved in golf, like I know me and you are. And you just kind of looked at it like, wow, he's got more than all those names you just mentioned who were being looked at as all-time greats. And Rory's been a great player for quite some time, and it's nice to see that he's got that now, and it just goes to show just how good he's been for quite some time now.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about in the baseball world before we switch to some other things is Kershaw, as you know, is now back in the rotation. He's checked off some early rust in a somewhat efficient outing. What do you think about Kershaw going forward? Do you think he is able to get back to the dominant, and do you think he's going to play get back to where he was at and add to that World Series run that they're on?
It's going to be interesting, man, because the for the long time, the whole narrative was that in the postseason he couldn't get it done. But then, we saw whenever they won the championship, he looked pretty good. And I just don't know which form of him we're going to get, because for so many years we just saw, just him not playing up to the potential, pitching to the potential that we know he can be, and that's an all-time great.
Right.
And I don't know which version we're going to get. I really don't, because like you said, he's getting older. It's not like he's doing horrible or nothing. But I think that if he doesn't look so hot coming out the gate, maybe they could put him in a bullpen, Jay. Maybe they could throw someone in there and put him in like a long reliever type situation, and maybe that could work. I mean, I always go back to think of John Smoltz, right? He started off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He was a good starting pitcher. They put him as a closer role for a little bit, and he was great there. And then, maybe that could be the move. But honestly, I think if he is gonna play good, if he's gonna be what they expect him to be, this injury wasn't really, too much of an issue, then obviously, throw him in the rotation, have him pitch every 5 days and see what he can do. So it's going to be, like I said, the big test, though, is what he's going to do in October. That's the big thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as Logan mentioned earlier, they did drop the game to the Mets 5-3. Kershaw gave them 1 hit, 1 earned run, while walking 3 batters and striking out 6. It's not a bad interesting. Night. He really, out of the 5 innings that he pitched, it was that first inning that just got him, which, I kind of understand, because, again, there's no simulation for real-time experience, right? So the first inning, if that's the only inning that he struggled on, which he basically gave up. So he allowed a hit. He walked 3. One of which was the run, was brought home, the first run for the Mets.
Yeah.
And then Kershaw walked, and then Kershaw, it was like his 7th, it looks like his 7th walk-in run of his career since 2015.
Oh, wow.
So again, man, hey, look, he had a terrible first inning, but if that's the only rough inning he has going forward, or if that gets him back in the groove, I think the Dodgers will take this loss, because let's be honest, their lead is still pretty fine. Well cemented.
They got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that they can if that's what it takes to get him back in the rotation, like you said, Logan, if it really can produce in October for them, then I don't think the Dodgers really give a damn.
No, and I mean, like you said too, is that first inning, and I mean, you're facing a really good Mets lineup, don't get us wrong. And he just had some control issues. I mean, obviously he hasn't pitched in a little while, and he's gonna be a little bit rusty. But I want to focus more on the other innings he had, the other 4 or 5 innings he had, when he looked really good. That's what I'm kind of taking away from it. I know they lost and everything. Like you said, they lost 5-3, and Kershaw only gave up 1 run. So I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of shift just for a second over to college football. They've got Bama as one of the biggest title favorites in 20 years.
I'm not surprised. Is anyone surprised by this, Jay?
Yeah. Well, as the biggest title favorite in 20 years, maybe, because I thought they would have had them a couple of years back. But no, them being the favorites doesn't surprise me. How much they think of them as the favorites maybe kind of does. But again, it doesn't surprise me that they're the freaking favorites. I mean, Georgia gets the national title, and Georgia gets number 2 ranking. So it is what it is.
I don't get it.
One of the questions I saw posed was, and I'll ask you this, is does the Notre Dame-Ohio State game that's going to happen tomorrow, I believe Notre Dame is ranked 5, Ohio, I think it was Ohio 3 or 2, I forget, but I know they're both in the top 5 right now ranked. Notre Dame-Ohio State, will that shape the playoff race?
I think for whichever team that loses, you can't lose again. You got to win out. I think that's got to be it, because it's tough, right? We know how tough it is if you take 1 loss to come back and to get into that college football playoff, because they are pretty stingy when it comes to that. So whether it is Ohio State, whether it is Notre Dame, whoever gets that loss, man, it's going to be an uphill climb from there, I think.
Absolutely. I want to welcome to the show from Betvegas, Mr. Gary Greene. How are you today, sir?
How are you guys doing? Happy holiday weekend.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, doing well,
College
doing
football
well.
weekend.
There you go.
Man, hey, listen, it's a lot. As you know, there's a lot of good games coming on tomorrow. So I hope the wife does not bother me during that time period. Yeah. So we have.
Well, she had all summer to bother you.
That is true. That is true. Just give me Saturday.
Yep.
Well, welcome to the morning show here on All Sports All Plays Network. Again, if you're not aware, Gary does sports betting. He has a magazine out about sports betting. Gary, if you could tell us just a little bit about your magazine and the things that you're involved with there in Bet-Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. I've been out here in Las Vegas for 34 years. I came out here to become a professional sports bettor, but turned out, doing some radio shows and stuff at the Stardust Casino turned into lots of radio shows. And when you're a young guy, 25 years old, and you see somebody else do something, there was a couple of people that had magazines, betting magazines, not many. And me and a friend of mine thought, oh, we can do that too. And of course, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we had a guy, this is before the internet even started. So we had a guy that could help us put the magazine together. He said, all you got to do is write everything down on a piece of paper and I'll get it into a magazine for you. And we started out at 8 pages and slowly got it up to 32 pages. And for a lot of years, it was a $6 copy magazine. We gave it away free in the casinos. And really, we don't actually print the magazine anymore. That's printed material really doesn't, people do everything on their phone or on the internet now. And so they can see it. So basically what we do is we offer it on the website, and there's always good deals going on. So it's basically almost next to nothing anyway. There were years I just gave it away free. But the casinos will still print certain stat sheets. So I always tell people what I'm trying to do is just like if we were all in college and they didn't take names at the class, if you showed up or not, and I show up, I take all the notes, and then I say to you, hey, how about for all the notes that you give me $6? You'd probably say sure thing. And this information will help you handicap the games yourself. There's a lot of great information that's right there that makes it easy for you to use. I use all the pages. That's how we started all the pages. They were all things that I needed that I went to for my right off the bat go-to handicapping needs. And so they're all pretty neat and right there at Vegas.tv. There's lots of articles and stuff now. And like I said, this is my 34th year. So, we've been around the block. We understand how the Vegas book wins. A lot of people just assume that, the book never loses. They've had losing weeks. The reason they don't lose is because people bet parlays. That's pretty much it right there. And really now, with I was here for 30 years where legal betting was only in Nevada. Now it's across the country. So now we have 30 states just about that are legal. So guess what? That means that's 30 times the people betting. Heck, I'm from New Jersey. If they had legal betting 33 years ago, I probably wouldn't have moved. I'm glad I did because I'm not a big guy that likes winter. But the idea is that New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania have basically already passed the handle that Nevada does, which is, 90% of Nevada's handle is Las Vegas, and the rest is up in Reno. But the point is that now they're making betting so accessible to everybody, and it's legal. Before, for 30 years, if you didn't live in Nevada and you said, where do I bet? I'd say, well, you'd have to bet in the offshore books in the Costa Ricas or wherever they're at and take your chances. But now you can pretty much, over half the country bet legally. But the problem is that this is going to cost a lot of people everything because they are allowing way too many bets. That they're pushing it. You can't even watch the baseball games now. Like, I'm a Phillies fan. I'm a Phillies season ticket holder. You can watch the game. They have a sponsor of one of the sports books, and say the over-under to start the game is 9, and the score is 3-3 after the second inning. They post up what the new line is. So they're going to give you another chance and another chance. And then, like you guys were just talking about that Dodgers game with the Mets. Before that game, you could bet on, say, Kershaw over under whatever it was, 7 strikeouts. So that's just another separate bet that you can have where for 30 years, really everybody either bet the side or the total. Like we're going to talk about a couple of the big games. Say Notre Dame's getting 17 from Ohio State, and then say the total's 57 or whatever it is. You'd have four chances to bet a game, right? You'd either take the favorite, the underdog, the over, or the under. And now every game has 5,000 opportunities to make a bet. So
That's
if you're
crazy.
making 20, 30, 40, 50 bets, in-game bets every day, you have no chance. And that's why the casino is going to make a lot of money. And they've already made it. In New York, they did $5 billion in handle. I knew that was going to happen because where I grew up back east, everybody bet. It was a normal way of life. You know, Utah, no. You know, that's not a normal way of life. But you know, I was stunned to see Arizona being so big. Indiana, big already. So, and the two biggest states to me are Texas, after New York, New Jersey, say back there, are Texas and California, and they're not even in yet. So once they hit that circuit, you know, that's going to pretty much, the sports books are going to have just about everything that they can want. And I think New York made $300 million or something. And they had that handle big last month, and there's not even football yet. So
that's just
incredible. Got blessed as football fans last week when college football has that quote unquote week 0. So it was okay. It was fun. You know, they had the Nebraska game, and Northwestern was a nice game in Ireland, and good game. Been a lot of blowouts so far too. Some of the big favorites have, you know, won pretty big, and it's not that surprising. I mean, a lot of things that people don't understand. One of my best buddies growing up, he was an offensive coordinator at San Jose State. And people don't realize this, but those small schools in the beginning of the year are forced to take what they call payday game. And the payday game means you go to Alabama, you get the living daylights beat out of you, but you get paid for it. You know, you get $1 million, you get $1.5 million payday. Those schools need that because a school like San Jose State had about 50 fans a game. You know, you're not going to make any money. So they kind of punish these kids in a way. Now, San Jose State actually has had some good teams. Don't get me wrong. You can still have a good team and at least compete a little bit. But those head coaches are not going to allow their kids to just go out there and get beat up for 3 weeks in a row, because their real season is the conference season. So a lot of people don't understand, you know, obviously, if you just bet, we're going to get into it a little bit, maybe into the show where, you know, people always say, well, just bet all the best teams. And for the most part, you probably wouldn't go broke doing it. If you bet bad teams, my theory and my number one tip to everybody that you always have to follow this tip is good teams, or great teams especially, will still win and cover spreads on a bad day. You know, they're just so good. They're so talented. You know, the third stringers, say, on Ohio State are better than the first stringers on San Jose State, or the Ball States, or, you know, whoever the bottom feeder Akrons are. So that's one way. And then the other side of it is the worst teams, even on their best day, when they play a perfect game, they still, you know, might not play that good. And it's not that surprising because, you know, the tier of kids in these top 10 rankings, these guys are lucky if they get one blue chipper. In college basketball, it's a little different. You can get lucky and get 1 or 2 blue chippers, right? 5 kids are playing, you get 2, you can compete. That's why you see the upsets in the March Madness stuff. It's not that shocking, but that's not going to happen in football too often.
Absolutely. And again, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but on your website, is the magazine, is it a website? Is that how they get into?
Yeah, you go to betvegas.tv, and then you can go to where it says buy picks, and then that's one of your opportunities. And you can actually buy the magazine for $99. And I have a special for all the people listening today. If they want to get the magazine, if they use code BLUE22, it's normally $99. It'll only be $49. So it'll be actually half off. And that's for the entire season. And you'll get an opportunity to get extra articles that won't be seen on the website. You'll get extra free picks in there all year. You'll get a chance to win great prizes. I have a lot of fun with contests and winning great prizes. You're going to be able to see a lot of stuff in that section besides. So it's a good opportunity to take advantage if you want to handicap, especially on your own, for $49 for a whole season. Take the pages. They're easy, print out pages. very simple. We hit one button, print for NFL, one button, print for all the college football, and use that stuff. Use it to handicap on your own. Now, of course, if you have no time to handicap, but you want to bet on games, that's what, I sell picks as a handicapper. And obviously, I'm doing 16 hours a day. If my friend's doing 16 hours a day in the stock market, he's probably going to excel just because he's putting in all the hard work. And for me, this is basically all I do. I know a lot of people play video games and fantasy. I mean, fantasy is probably almost bigger than sports betting is. And so is video games, but I don't do either one of them because, again, there's not enough time in the day, and you can't be a professional. Even poker players, you just got to keep playing. You got to be in action, and it's got to be in your head 24/7 for you to be a winner at this. So it's hard to win, but my key tip is try not to bet too many games. I mean, you can't bet 20 and 30 games. All these props, they all may look good in their shiny stars. They look so bright, but it's going to be tough to just keep beating a book game after game after game.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think also if you put, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you put the promo code All Sports All Plays, I think in there, or ASAP in there, I believe you also get that as well.
Yes, if you put in the code ASAP1 for I have a special right now for this first weekend of game for college football. It's $99 for all the picks for the whole weekend, all the way through Labor Day. And then you'll actually even get all my baseball picks. And I've done okay in the WNBA. I actually like both of the games Sundays. So I'll be on both of the Sunday WNBA games, so you get that. And the baseball would actually run all the way to Wednesdays. So you're almost getting a full week of baseball as well. But if you put ASAP1, when you're choosing that 1 week $99 special for my picks, it will only end up being $49. So you'll actually get half off on that. So you could get my whole weekend plays this weekend for $49. Now, we did have our winning streak. I thought we were going to pull off our second time where we were able to start a season 10-0. We did that many years ago, and we were 7-0, and I had Purdue plus 3.5, and it went back and forth. And at home, Purdue on a night game, I says, man, the first game of the year, we're getting good value. And for the most part, it was a tough loss, but you got to give credit to Penn State. They went down when they had to. One drive to go. That's all they had. They had to get a touchdown. They pulled it off, and they were able to end up winning by 4. So, but we're off to a great start, 7-1. And, to be honest with you, the first week is always the toughest. You're trying to feel out teams, and so many new head coaches, especially 30 new head coaches. That's just insane. That's almost 25% of the college football landscape has a new head coach, which means new offensive coordinator, probably new defensive coordinator, except for a rare occasion. So new schemes, new changes, and transfer portals. It's good that the rich get richer with the transfer portals. Usually, it's not the lower level teams. So transfer portals, they're helping the top 10 teams reload with already a top recruiting class. But for some kids, in a smaller, like a MAC conference, these poor kids, sometimes year after year after year, they have a new coach, new offensive coordinator, and you're learning new schemes, and people think that's all easy. It's the NFL guys don't even find it easy. So if it's hard for an NFL guy and they're the elite of the elite, think about how hard it is for the lower level kids.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then I was looking at some of the questions that we had, and it says, what are the chances that the number one team in AP poll will win it all this season? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, here's the interesting thing. There's only been one number one team since the college football playoff started in 2013 actually win the national championship. That was the 2017 Alabama team. So it's difficult, obviously, in some forms in college football, more than one loss will knock you right the heck out of there if there happens to be a bunch of 6 teams in that scenario. And you guys were talking earlier about Notre Dame and Ohio State. Yeah, Notre Dame, I mean, they're right up against it. A big dog on the road and probably one of the toughest places to play against maybe the greatest offense in college football history. We'll see, but they have all the makings to do it. And if you lose that game, like you guys said, you got to probably run the table, maybe with some kind of outside miracle. I mean, they have an opportunity, though. They can beat Clemson. They can beat USC. which could win their conferences. And then in turn, that could, the committee could say, hey, they've lost games, but they beat these two top teams. But they're going to also have to keep the game at least close against Ohio State. It's not always if you win, but you can't get blown out either. So, but a lot of teams that have actually won the national championship, Jay, have been the teams 3-6. That's surprising. The rankings of teams 3-6 have won the most college football national championships. And I guess there's a little bit of value if you wanted to take, the books are obviously going to get their heavy action. Right now the heavy Elite Three is Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama, which is not surprising. But you have Clemson, who had a down year last year, that's clearly capable. They're going to be loaded on defense, and if their quarterback, who's really he's the demise last year, and it'll be either his doing that he became better, or if he regresses. If he regresses this year, though, they have a young backup that's going to come right in for him. So, but then with young kids also, you don't know. But I do like Clemson for a rebound. I mean, I loved what they did at the end of the year. They could have packed it in, and they just ran the table at the end, and they had a fantastic defense, and they kind of won in spite of a bad offense. So,
right,
betting on these things, the odds of a team outside that top six, and number 5 and 6 is Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Obviously, Texas A&M has the opportunity because they're going to get a chance to say knock off Alabama, and then if you can do that, which would be a second straight year of doing that, then obviously that's going to lift your power, numbers to that committee, way to the top.
Absolutely. And speaking of spreads and best teams and things of that nature that you covered, is it true the best teams cover the spread the best?
Well, we talked about that a little bit at the open, and I'll give you some numbers. But last year, if you looked at the top 10, the AP poll, the top 10 teams, and if you were to just blindly bet all those teams the entire season, you would have actually went 69, 60, and 5, which really is just a 3-unit profit. You're not going to make a lot of money with that. Clemson kind of hurt that with the down year. They're against the spread record wasn't that good. So you had a situation there where the teams, though, and it wasn't that shocking. There's always a sneaky team that'll get in there that maybe a lot of teams didn't know about. Western Kentucky's and the Louisiana Lafayette's, a little bit lower level teams that'll come in there and jump up. Cincinnati jumped up there last year with 13 in 1 year, but the teams last year, Jay, that went 11 and 14, or won between 11 and 14 games, they went 146, 89 and 5 against the spread. So if you just bet that those teams, and again, none of them are really a giant surprise coming into the season. We expected all those teams to be pretty good. You would have made some money. Now, the teams that were bad, and no surprise really for more than maybe 1 or 2 of them, but teams that won just 1 or 2 games last year went 50 and 71. So if you're not sure what you want to do, the safer side is really always to, lean to the elite teams. Because like I said, even on the bad days, I mean, I'll give you an example. It's funny. Yesterday, the first game of the day I have is Tennessee. They're laying big number 35. I felt that they just had way too many horses, and they would come right out and win in a blowout. And on the very first play, Tennessee picks off the ball, and you're saying to yourself, "Wow, this might be a good night for us already." And then they just run out because they just have, they're even when they're putting in backups, their backups are better than the starters at the opposing team's roster. So again, here's an interesting trend though for the last 5 seasons. Teams that were college football favorites from 30 to 38 points, they were just 35 and 49. So people would say, well, what happened there? Well, first off, it's week number 1. They only have 15 practices now, so that's something that you have to take into consideration. But then you also look at the fact that some of those teams play at times a cupcake, what they call it, Dick Vitale, use that name, Cupcake City or whatever. But they're playing a cupcake. They're getting a freebie for the most part. They may have a really tough game the next week. So you have to remember, you're not just betting on this week. you're betting on next week too, because that good coach of a good team is not really going to want to show anything. Now, in Tennessee's case last night, no matter what they did, they just kept putting in backups, and they just kept bombing. The other team had no chance. So that was a wire blow up. But when there's a little bit where you would perceive as a letdown, it's not really so much a letdown. It's that the head coach may not be showing his full hand. So you're betting a number that's high, and you're not getting value back because that guy's not stupid. He's trying to get his guys out, get the win, get out of there. If you're going to look at teams, you might want to bet the first half. And that's why it's interesting about Alabama. Alabama in the first half, the last 4 years, is 36-18 against the spread. Now, they're not bad, 32-21 with the full game. But you see the little discrepancy there because they're going to pull those guys at the halftime. And they, if they have any kind of friendship with the other coach, they're not in there to run out the score. Now, if they keep handing off up the middle, they're basically telegraphing the other team, running the ball dead up the middle. If they're running it up the middle and they still bust through and get touchdowns, even the other coach is not going to come over and say, wow, you're running up the score on me. I can't believe it. So, and in this case, you have a spread tomorrow for Alabama, 42 against Utah State, who's like a top 25 type team. But the books know who you're going to bet for one. And the difference is, though, we'll get into this in a second, but look ahead. And what does Alabama have? They have Texas next week. Texas. Now, Texas didn't have a good year last year, but it's Steve Sarkisian, former Alabama offensive coordinator. He kind of knows a little bit about Alabama. So, again, you don't want to show too much of your hand. Now, they could their third stringers could, score at will here. Because what's really funny is Connecticut last week, they were almost able to give Utah State a run for their money, and they're winning 14-0, and they lose their quarterback and their top running back. And you're just like, oh, what a shame, because you wish you could have seen that game play out. And they hung in there. So Utah State couldn't beat a rebuilding, brand new head coach, average, probably bottom 15 team. They had to struggle for everything, anything you can see this weekend.
Yeah, Jay Ness asked the question, do you see any big upsets this weekend?
Well, Jay's going to have to pay for that.
Hey, I know you can't give away everything.
It's funny because you're gonna have a lot of games, and if I was gonna pick, it's not gonna be a major upset or anything, but Boise State actually has a really good team. You're not getting a lot of points; you're only getting about a field goal. They're going to Oregon State. I actually like Jonathan Smith, the head coach at Oregon State, but this Boise State team, I think they're going to be one of the better surprise teams. They're going to have a much better season this year, and they have a lot of solid talent. So, I mean, that's a small one. I mean, could Cincinnati come back and go on the road and beat Arkansas off that great 13-1 year? It's certainly possible. They're one of the most well-coached teams in college football. I kind of like this Arkansas team this year, though. So, but there's a possibility of an upset there. I actually didn't really look into too many really possibly big upsets. I mean, everybody's talking about, which they should, but Ohio State, Notre Dame, and then Georgia and Oregon, with Oregon's head coach being the former defensive coordinator from Georgia. What the heck? You can't get it. This is good stuff. And I mean, that Penn State Purdue game, did you get a chance to watch that game last night?
I did not. I was actually watching the other game, so I didn't get a chance to watch it.
I mean, there's a situation where, man, there's nothing better than college football for the atmosphere, the electric atmosphere. I mean, Purdue is not a top 10 type team, but they had a sellout at nighttime, great game playing Penn State. They were really both evenly matched. I mean, for the most part, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, even though Pittsburgh comes away with the win, there were times where West Virginia was actually dominating for the most part Pittsburgh. And then all of a sudden you get a tip ball and an interception and return for a touchdown, and bam, the game just switches. And that happens a lot in momentum games, especially on the road. And I was surprised again that, that Purdue at home, that was the best week that they could have played Penn State right off the bat. And they had a little bit of a sluggish first half, and then they played pretty well in the second half, but couldn't make the big plays. And that's the difference of whether or not you're going to have a big season. For Penn State, that's a gigantic win. They didn't really play that good, and they got a win. And then if you're Purdue, you're just scratching your head because you're like, wow, we just let that big game get away from us. And for teams in the Big Ten, you have Michigan, you have Wisconsin, you have Ohio State. So Michigan State, you already have, some pretty elite programs. Can't be throwing away the close games. You got to win them close games.
Oh, no, I absolutely 100% agree with you on that as well. Sleepers, who are your football sleeper teams to watch?
Okay, I'll give you my three sleeper teams. And my first one's a team that really nobody's talking about. And that's the kind of teams I like to take a shot at because you're going to get extra point value because nobody's really looking at it. Now, it's not going to happen in the first week, but what's going to happen here is you have a Maryland team that they have Tua Tagovailoa's brother, Talia, the quarterback, and he's really good. He really is good. They get a great set of receivers in there. I used to use this line when I was a younger guy. These words would come up all the time in college football, and mostly from teams like Miami or Florida. But speed kills, and if you got the speed and the other team ain't got it, you're just blowing by. Little screen passes could turn into 60, 70-yard touchdowns. Where other lower ranked teams that don't have that speed, they got to grind, have everything working. This Maryland team wins. It's only 5.5, and I really have Team Penn for a good season. Their head coach is in his fourth year. Everybody knows the systems. Again, I really like the offense. I don't know how great the defense will really be, but I think the offense has the capabilities to score 30 points every week. That means you have a possibility to win. And give it some of these better in the Big Ten, but over 5.5. That Maryland team is my number one sleeper. My number two, it's not that it's a sleeper because it's a top 10, but it's Oklahoma. And trust me, all you hear about is USC, USC, USC. You don't really hear Oklahoma. You hear Lincoln Riley like as if he was some god. He lost 2 games every year. He was not a god. He had a loaded team, and he lost 2 games every year. So Oklahoma, to me, the best hire in college football of those 30 head coaches. There were 18 last year, 30 this year. Best head coach hire, Brent Venables. He could have had a job for years and years and years. He stayed at Clemson, and, we can all see what he's done there. He's going to go to Oklahoma. What's their one little weakness? It's been the defense. He will clear that up quickly. This guy's a genius. In-game changes, nobody better in the business on the defensive side of the ball. So if you can help out that side of the ball, this team, Oklahoma, has a quarterback, okay? This quarterback is, to me, one of my favorite quarterbacks in college football. And I truly believe that this kid has an opportunity and this offense to really light up the scoreboard and have a really surprising season to the point where they could knock off everybody. If everything falls right, they can knock off everybody. So I like Oklahoma. And then my third one is NC State. And NC State's a team, just real quick, that Gabriel Dillon. This kid was electric at Central Florida. And then he got hurt. And people just quickly forget about guys. New guys come in. But I think that this kid's an elite passer. And I think that team's going to have a big year. And then the same thing for NC State. North Carolina State Wolfpack. Quarterback Leary, this is a team that's loaded, absolutely loaded on defense. I mean, top 5 possibly team on defense. You got a top 5 defense, and you got a quarterback that's this veteran and this good. He's got a superior wide receiver group. I really think that this team had to feel its oats for the last couple of years. I think that this team's going to have a good season. Their over-under season total wins is only 8.5, Jay, 8.5. And what's funny about this is this team is likely to be favored in every game Their one hard, tough road game will be at Clemson, which they will be an underdog, no doubt about that. But the fact is, if you're the favorite in all your games all year long, 8.5, I need 9 wins. I can lose 3 games. I think North Carolina State's another team that's going to have a really talked about strong season, and I see them working their way right into the top 10 and staying there for the entire year.
Very nice, very nice. Jay Ness had a question as well. He says, "How do you feel about the Pac-12 once USC departs?"
Well, I'm a UCLA guy. Let's see, where's my hat? See my hat right there, UCLA.
I do.
I'm a UCLA guy. I'm not happy about this. It's just getting to be where we're going to have 3 loaded conferences and then all the rest are just going to be garbage. I honestly think that's going to make for much tougher handicapping. But, if USC leaves, it's supposed to be UCLA and USC. I think UCLA is getting second thoughts. They're the premier Pac-12 team, Pac-10, now Pac-12, but forever. They're basically one of the, most storied schools ever. And to leave, I get the money. It's crazy money. If USC leaves, then, I guess if UCLA stays, that's going to be great. I'm curious to see how this USC team, I see everybody loving them, everybody picking their quarterback, possible Heisman. This Lincoln Riley, he's the greatest. He's a god. He's going to go in there. His team won 4 games last year. Their defense sucked. And I don't know how much better the defense is. Yes, they're going to score points on offense, but they did that last year. And they were giving up 40 points and 35 points. And, that's how you're just opening the door if your defense is poor. In the Pac-12, you have other legitimate teams that can score some points. Washington's going to be better. Oregon State's going to have a decent team. So you have teams in the Pac-12 that could give USC trouble. But, if they leave, I guess who knows, maybe they pull in somebody else eventually to sneak in there from another lower tier league. The BYU's, Notre Dame obviously is always just sitting back waiting for the best deal that they can make. And I liked it when Notre Dame was in the AAC for a couple, or ACC. They were in the ACC for a couple years. That gave it a little bit extra because it was really Clemson, right? You had Clemson just able to easily almost run the table in their league as long as they don't blow that first game of which they usually schedule somebody pretty good. If they get that game, they were probably going to be in the Final Four at the end because, if you're undefeated, and even if you have one loss, unless there's a big groupage of 6 people, you're still going to get in there. And that's why we saw Clemson in every year. Not that they didn't have great teams, because they really did. Right. But that's where I see that situation. I mean, it's unfortunate, but soon, like I said, we'll have SEC and Big Ten, and even the Big 12 is going to get hurt when they lose Texas and Oklahoma. So it's college football. It's all about the money.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The last question I think that the network had for you before we go on to the next topic of questions is, what is your favorite sport to handicap?
For years, my top sport, my favorite was college basketball. And that's because there's a difference in football and college basketball. In football, the line maker has all week to see what happened, play it all out. In college basketball, like, how that line where they say life comes at you fast. Well, life comes at you fast as a bookmaker when you have football going on already, and then you have these college basketball games every night, 50, 60 games. They're not going to be able to keep up on all those games, and I was able to take advantage of them for many, 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 many years, and that was always my favorite sport. I've never really done NBA other than playoffs for my season customers. I started doing a little WNBA this summer because we were building a new website and we were working out glitches, so I wanted to keep testing it. But I have some of my biggest clients that pay on a commission only, so I can, if they want to keep betting, I kept giving them some baseball games. I was giving them the WNBA games. I gave them even USFL because, again, we were trying to fix, learn the system a little bit and find out the flaws before football and the craziness started. So. But college basketball won. It's very interesting. College football was 1A for a lot of years. And about 10 years ago, I would have a little trouble in NFL at times. and never had a real losing season, some close to break even ones, but the college would carry us. And then about 10 years ago, I said, I'm making a complete change. I changed my complete theory and every way I did handicapping for the NFL. And for the last 10 years, I'm probably the greatest NFL guy in the business. I almost even can't believe it at times, but we have just completely run the table for 10 years. So I guess people would say, oh, my regular customers say, oh, Gary, you think you're going to have another great season? Man, you're the greatest in NFL. And you're thinking, really, my number one is college football when it comes to those two. But obviously results do make a difference. But hopefully that, the college football last year, I couldn't break through. I couldn't get that 7-0, 6-1 week. And I just hovered until the last week of the regular season. I was one game ahead in college football. And then I had a good week. Then I had a good championship week. And then I ran the table in the bowls. And at least the final outcome, if you look at it, it's a little bit deceiving because it wasn't that way. But the NFL just week after week after week just never hardly had a losing week. And out of 20 and just ran the table the whole year. So, we're hoping for that. We'll see what happens. New head coaches and stuff, new changes. Russell Wilson to Denver. You got changes every year. So I use the first week or two as feel out processes. But once I see everybody play a couple of times, get a chance to learn what these new schemes that these guys have. Because when I'm watching game tapes at 12, 1, 2, 3 in the morning every night, that's really where I'm picking up the little tidbits and the little things that I use to make the final selection. So, when it comes to NFL, look, college football, the elite teams obviously have the better offensive line, better defensive line. Until they match up against each other, you don't really know. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year, the question mark for Georgia, funny to hear this now, the question mark for Georgia coming into last year, they played Clemson opening day, was the secondary was a weak link. Weak link. Georgia won the national championship. Wasn't that weak, was it? So, going in, that was the talk, and the final score of that first week's game was, I think, 10-3. So it wasn't like that team came right out the gate. And I said, after one game, I said, well, this secondary is not that weak. And then the next week I was like, this secondary is not that weak. I think his defense is really going to be good. And it turns out that half the goddamn team went to the NFL in the draft. That's how good they were. So interesting what you will learn. But you'll learn. I actually personally learned the most in the first 2 weeks.
Hey, Gary, tell us about your look ahead handicapping angle.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Look ahead is so key because you want to look at when you're looking at a team and you say, okay, I'm ready. This is the team I want to bet. Look at who they play next week. Make sure, because I'll give you an example. Kentucky's at Florida next week. Okay. They're almost 17-point favorite tomorrow or Saturday. Yeah, tomorrow against Miami of Ohio. Again, do they want to show the whole hand? Probably not. So people be like, I can't believe they didn't beat that team. Well, if that ends up being the case, that's why. Mississippi State's got at Arizona next week, but they're home to Memphis this week. So the game this week is so big because it's a revenge game. And so you have to play that into consideration. And next week would be the opposite. But Alabama's at Texas next week. Utah State, like we say, 42 points tomorrow. And South Carolina plays Arkansas, which is a big game. That recruiting is big. They're close to each other. And they play Georgia State. They're giving about 2 touchdowns. So when you're given a lot of points, look ahead is a little bit of a problem. If it was Boise State saying having their biggest rivalry game next week, it's a low spread. They're not looking ahead. They got to win this game. Winning the game when you're laying 42 is not that difference.
Chris Gonzalez is asking, do you look ahead in the NFL as well?
You look ahead a little bit. You know what I mean? The NFL is a much different animal, not even close as far as college football, because, the NFL, look, there might be bad teams, but they have elite players at certain positions. Okay. that's why it's not that shocking to see even the worst team. Look, last year, the Tennessees, the Indianapolis Colts in the end of the season couldn't beat the worst team in the league. It's not as surprising, but you do want to look ahead because, if there's a huge game, if somebody's got Tampa Bay next week, somebody pretty good, and this week they're playing, say, the Jaguars, of course that you got to be careful of that because they're going to do the same thing. They're not going to show their hand either. They're not going to pull out anything they got, any trick in the bags coming next week. So you're not getting that benefit this week if you're making that bet. But, again, you have to still, bet accordingly to the game. But it's much bigger in college football, I think, than it is in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I know you kind of touched briefly at the beginning of the show on the Notre Dame and Ohio, as well as the Oregon and Georgia game that's going to be on tomorrow. What are your thoughts on those two big games a little bit deeper?
Yeah, you got again, Ohio State 17-point, the total was 59. You got number 5 versus number 2. Can't get any better than that. In my power ratings, I have Notre Dame 85. I have Ohio State 98. So that's a difference of 13 points. So now you're laying that extra 4, but you can easily give the Ohio State home field as 4 points for an advantage. I mean, 100,000+ people are going to be there. They didn't play good their last home opener. Last year, as like 2-touchdown favorite to Oregon, they get beat straight up. So, they have that on their plate. They lost to Michigan, which is a bad taste. They did rebound in the bowl game, but you have a situation where the spread on this game, guys, -17 is the third largest point spread of any 2 top 5 teams playing each other. So that shows you how insane. All the talk obviously is Ohio State, 3 guys, any one of them could win the Heisman, quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Again, I told you earlier, possibly that this could turn into being as good as the offense was last year, and 2 guys got drafted in the first round. This offense could be better than last year. You have a kid quarterback, and it's got more experience. You got a good offensive line. Both of these teams have good offensive line and defensive line. So that's where Notre Dame has a little chance to match up. The difference for Notre Dame, brand new quarterback, brand new running back, number 1 quarterback, number 1 running back, number 1 wide receiver. So they got probably the best tight end in college football, and Mayer, so that's good. That's a positive. But both teams return 8 starters, so they're even in that spot. But for Ohio State, the reason they struggled some last year is the defense wasn't up to par. What do? Boy, you're elite. You're out of there. You ain't up to par. You're fired. They bring in Jim Knowles, who was the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma State. Fantastic hire. The guy was the number 3 defense last year in all of college football. This guy knows what he's doing. And it's interesting because Oklahoma State played Notre Dame in the bowl game. So Knowles knows kind of what Freeman's going to do. Freeman has a little idea, which is an advantage for Freeman too. When you have a brand new quarterback, I don't think this kid's the best. When you're dual threats, that's nice. But if your threat is more of the runner and not the passer, if you're going against an elite team, how are you going to come back when you start falling behind? You're going to have to pass. And, if you're not a normal in a groove passing guy, it's a lot tougher situation. So you have offensive line is solid for this Ohio State or for the Notre Dame team, but their All-American center may not play. So you want to make sure if he's playing. That could be a gigantic loss. On defense, Notre Dame has a new defensive coordinator, Al Golden, who's been around for 100 years. I think he's 100 years old. They got 7 starters returning. They got a nice transfer safety. This Brandon Joseph's going to be a nice safety. He's going to help the back end that they lost. Kyle Hamilton, who was the best safety I've seen in 10 years in college football. So you're at least doing some decent work there, replacing there. The secondary for Notre Dame, we said this about Georgia last year. We'll find out quickly. That's the weak link. And boy, we're going to find out how weak or how good, maybe they're not so weak, going against this high-rated octane offensive Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jay Nez chimes in that Ohio State could be really dangerous. Like you said, the defense is going to shape up their overall season success.
It's always nice when you got a top 3 recruiting class, right? I mean, you know,
It is.
you know, if you can reload, because that's what these top teams have to do. I mean, look at Georgia. I think 9 guys went to the draft, so you got to reload, and you're going to have blue chippers coming in right away. Now these teams have all a little bit anyway had at least a 1 or 2 pickups in the transfer portal of elite kids that were playing at maybe lower level schools that say, hey, I'm the best player on this team, maybe the best player in this lower conference. I'm shooting over to this team. So they're joining a team that's already pretty good, and then they're just going to make them that little bit better. But a couple of notes here. Ohio State, their head coach Ryan Day is 13-4 against top 25 teams. You know, that's impressive. There's guys that are not that. I can tell you that Notre Dame Brian Kelly, who's now LSU Brian Kelly, he ain't that good at that number. So you have Notre Dame, though. Here's an interesting trend. They're 213 wins, 24 losses when they score 30 or more points since 1989. Okay.
Crazy.
They may need 40 points this week. 30 points, 31 might not help that number there, because I got to believe that Ohio State's got a good opportunity to score 35 or more. So, that's a situation there. Let's see other notes I might have had here. Again, it's a high number. The Notre Dame offensive coordinator, like I said, Tommy Rees, he's a good offensive coordinator. How quickly can he get this new unit to mesh together? We'll see. I think he wishes that he had an opportunity to play Ohio State after they won their last 3 openers by 50, because there could be a letdown. There ain't going to be no letdown for Ohio State. But given Notre Dame 17 is not, there's 50, 60 games on the board. I understand that everybody wants to bet, especially these big games. And, in my system, Thursday night games, Friday night games, Monday night games, especially NFL, just because the game's on Thursday or Monday doesn't mean it's an automatic play because it's the only game and everybody's going to watch it, so everybody's going to bet it. You're going to be a losing bettor doing that. That's why most people lose too, because you just keep betting and betting and betting. And you may even look at the game, you're like, I don't really even like this game, but I'm going to throw a bet on it. Well, if you're not using money management looking at the whole season, you're going to get yourself in big trouble doing that. But I don't do it. It upsets some clients, over the years. Some people, they want to bet. They like, what am I going to do? And you're like, what do you want me to do? Just make this stuff up. So that makes it difficult. But when it comes to betting, you should be just taking games that you absolutely love. Now, I rate every game 1 unit or 1.5, 2 or 2.5. I almost never give it 2.5. There might be a couple all year. 2 units, there might be 8 or 10. Most of the plays you want to bet the same. If you're a guy betting out there, bet the same on every game. And that doesn't mean, like right now, I had a guy last night, brand new customer, and he called me after we were 6-0. It looked like we had a chance to be 8-0. So he was a little bit like, whoa, man, dude, we're going to be 8-0. This is the most exciting time of my life. And his first thing was, should we start betting more tomorrow? And he was like a $330 bettor. And I told him right off the bat, $330 every game. If we have a little bit bigger game, maybe $445.50 on a 2.5 stars. So right off the bat, his question was, should I bet more? You're hot. Well, every day is the same new day. It's the same new day. Yes, if I have a 2-unit play and I really love that game, then yeah, you bet a little bit more. But it doesn't mean, like, say we were 8-0 and he's $300 better. He'd be up $2,400. That doesn't mean you start now going $600 a game. It just doesn't work that way. Now, that's what a lot of people try to do. And the biggest thing is, in the old days, everybody bet for the most part with a bookie. And the way the bookie works, you bet through Monday Night Football. If you lose for the week, you better go find him and pay your money on Tuesday, right? If you win, he'll find you, or you can go to him, one or the other. But Tuesday is payday if you lose. Wednesday is collection day if you win. Well, most people, when it got to the last game, if they're, say, $100 bettor and they're down $500, they're going to be like, wow, I can't tell the wife I lost $500. I'm going to bet $500 on this game. It's 50. It is 50-50, right? It's not. You're not picking the lottery number, but the fact is that you're going to bet that game for $500. Now, if you win, it's great. You're like, woo, dodged the bullet. I was 1-5 or whatever, but I broke even. But when you lose and now you're double in the hole, what are you going to do now? You're going to start grasping. You're going to start upping your bets. And that's how you're going to run into trouble. It's a long season. Not trying to be anybody's father, but people ask me for tips all the time. Every single day. And when you win that money, you keep that money in the money pot. You know what I mean? A lot of people, like my friends, they win the games and they're like, hey, man, let's go out. We want to go wherever they're going to go. Let's go blow money. Let's go play craps or something like that. You're like, dude, that's the pot money for the betting for the year. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't go out and buy, oh, man, I'm going to go buy a new TV. I'm going to go buy my wife something, whatever. We'll buy your wife something anyway, but don't use that money because you got to use your bankroll for the whole year. This is a tough racket to keep winning at. It's a very difficult proposition to keep winning at betting. And that's why I said that these sports books, it might be legal now. And that's great for everybody. You're going to have a legal account that you know you're going to get paid. You know, I always knew. That's why I moved to Vegas. If you're going to bet $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a game, you bet at Vegas, it's 100% getting paid, right? You bet with the bookie, you know, luckily I knew the bookies back home. They were like family. So, you know, I was probably 99%. There's always a chance I wouldn't get paid. And so now you're betting legally, you're going to get paid, but they're throwing all these shiny objects at you. And you're just, you know, it's kind of like why fantasy got so big. You know, you just play one fantasy team, play another one and another one and another one and another one. And when your team, you know, you didn't do too good early, they let you rebound with the I call it the 4 o'clock games, even though it's 1 o'clock Pacific time. But the NFL games say, right? You have the late games. You see you got slaughtered in the early games. You ain't going to take your loss. You're going to jump right back in, and they're going to put new lineups, right? New
Oh, absolutely.
Pick a new team. So you're just going to keep betting and betting and betting. And like I said, it's a tough racket. Now, fantasy, I tell people, if you like some of my friends, you know, they're just having fun with it. So they're going to bet 10, 20, $50, right? They're going to go in these contests with 100 or 200 people. If they can get lucky and win that contest, the payday's pretty good, you know, for a small loss. And it's a probable loss because you're going against so many people. You know, I got another friend that plays fantasy, and he'll go in the contests that are just 2 people. It's him and another guy. That's it. Okay. He put $500 in there. He's saying, Gary, I'm going to go against one guy. I'm not sitting here trying to follow 29 or 50 or 100 other people I got to beat. I got to beat this guy. And so that's his fun. He's not really even per se betting games. That's his fun because he made the picks. And, you know, I'm not a big fantasy guy. I'm going to put a fantasy guy on the site here, this newer site. I've kind of been on my own for a long time, but I've not been able to help a lot. I don't bet soccer. Soccer is actually getting big. You know, I got a family member on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Lightning in hockey, but I don't really bet hockey. I'll bet it a little bit at the playoffs because I truly believe that they're all live games. But NBA, NHL's not too bad. They're not like pusses. They play. They play hurt. Right. The guy's got a broken leg. He's out there basically playing. Stitched up, lost his eye, his 4 teeth. He's right back out there. NBA, you kind of got to wait it out almost to an hour before the game to see is LeBron playing because you're going to lay 10 points and then he doesn't play and it's 2 points. You just made a bad bet, right? So that kind of stuff, unless they at least tell you a day ahead of time, he's sitting tomorrow and they help you out a little bit. But that's the difference. Nobody's sitting in college basketball. You know what I mean? The guy's not, oh, young man, you take a little break today. You don't have to play because we're playing lowly, whoever, you know, a lowly team in say the ACC Duke. You take off today. That's never happening. Never. They play every single game. And the difference, though, of a good part about basketball is compared to football, and that's why I always like college basketball better than football as a betting sport. People ain't getting hurt in basketball, okay? My game's playing out 99%. All my guys play. Football, first play, quarterback's down. You know, those memes and everything where the people are sitting in the stadium. You know, that's what everybody did for Purdue last night. All our fans were like, no, what happened? But that's what you're going to have in football because it's a rough sport and people are going to get hurt. And, you know, you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have 3, 4, almost the whole offensive line hurt. You know, they don't grow on trees. You know, when
Right.
Rick Pitino said Larry Bird ain't walking through that door and Robert Parrish ain't walking through that door. Well, that guy on that team, if he's a backup offensive lineman, if he was any goddamn good, he'd be an offensive lineman starting on another team, right?
Well,
But
that's true.
you have to go in there and play. You got to play, and so football's a rough sport. People and really, to be honest with you, this college football. The one rant that I have against college football is this targeting. Kids getting kicked out. I mean, they almost kicked the kid out in the one game. I think it was the Purdue Penn State game last night. Get confused watching 7 games at once. But the kid's going down to make the tackle, and then all of a sudden the receiver goes down, and then they smack into their heads, and all of a sudden the guy's getting kicked out. Now in the NFL, he's not getting kicked out, but in college, he's getting kicked out. Is that your marquee guy on defense? You know what I mean? Are we just
Right
on the first play? And it does. I've seen kids get kicked out in the first 5 minutes. You're like, God, I just lost my best player right there. This game's just gotten harder. They may get a 15-yard penalty in the NFL, but they ain't getting kicked out. So there's a little discrepancy. There's always a lot of different angles in betting, but that's one that I don't like. I don't like that guy getting kicked out. I mean, I could see maybe if they were even going to say he's got to get kicked out for the next series, but not the whole game. I'm not a fan of that.
Chris also asks, does the transfer portal make handicapping harder for you?
It does a little bit because, I'll give you a good example. I took Northwestern in week 1 against Nebraska, not because of the transfer portal, although Helsinki, the quarterback, wasn't bad. At times, he played in the SEC. He played in some big games, and he wasn't bad. So I thought, wow, this team made an upgrade, really. That's an upgrade at quarterback. This is, a running team anyway, a defensive-oriented team, a grinded-out team. If this kid can pass the ball decent and, not make any mistakes, they're going to – this guy didn't understand why they were given in Dublin, which realistically was basically saying that if they in Nebraska, they would have been given 17 points. Nebraska, every game they played, like, forever under Frost is a one-score game. He has the most one-score games ever. So you're like, I'm getting great value here if this kid doesn't mess it up. But again, that's a transfer portal. Again, another new system that he had to learn. So, obviously some kids are elite. Last year you had that Tennessee quarterback Hooker, right? He goes to Tennessee from Virginia Tech, and you're like, this kid can play. I mean, he can run. Anybody that can run with the ball and make first downs out of scrambles, that's a good, extra key that you want in your quarterback. But man, you can see he did really well right off the bat for the most part, and even beat out another guy, Milton. There's a team that has probably the best backup quarterback in college football. In case that kid ever gets hurt, they're not going to be dead in the water. But look what happens this year. He's had a full year under his belt now, and now this team on offense is going to be loaded. They're going to be like in Ohio State caliber almost. They have an offensive coordinator, a head coach guy in Heupel that's going to, he's a genius at calling plays. I mean, the kid won the Heisman, so he knows what he's doing. But he's got the quarterback, he's got the wide receivers, he's got a decent offensive line. So you have to look, if you're looking at transfer portal, smaller school quarterbacks, how's the offensive line, and is the system completely different for him? Because in weeks 1, 2, 3, they may have a huge adjustment periods. It's just how it is. In the NFL, guys are just so much smarter, even though it's not a transfer, but you got like a Baker Mayfield going to from Cleveland to Carolina. They've already played long enough. They understand, and even the offense coordinator is going to put in a system that works to them. Sometimes with kids in transfer portal, the offensive coordinator is running his plays. The kid's got to learn his system. So, it's like I said, it's a great thing for the kids because they get to play without sitting out. I don't know how, I think it's Wyoming. They just ran out of town, like just left the team with nothing. I mean, with a down year now. And so, yes, for these kids, they're going to get a chance to go to greener pastures. I get it. But the transfer portal really helps, the elite teams. Look at USC. Yeah. They poach Oklahoma's guys because they're happy to be with their coach, Riley. So they poach them. Luckily for Oklahoma, they're a top 5, 10 team. So they're able to bring in guys too, because they in a way poach the Gabriel kids. So it works for everybody if you could get them, but if you're losing them, not so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've kind of mentioned, well, you've actually sprinkled a lot of different tips throughout the show already. Are there any more helpful tips that you haven't talked about that maybe you might be able to help our young bettors that are out there getting ready to go place their first bets?
Yeah, I would say this is a tough thing for smaller bettors, but the very number one rule to increase your chances of winning, even me, I'm making the same picks, but if I increase my chances of winning by having, say, opening 5 betting accounts, if you're in a state that has 5 different outlets, you have BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, whoever, 5 different Caesars, they have the outs. If you say bet 200 a game, if you can just get at least 440 into each one of those accounts, that means that every game that you make a bet on, you can now have 5 opportunities to get the very best line. And you're going to see, like last night, for the most part, the Purdue game that I lose with 3.5, the line was 3 or 3.5. It really wasn't showing up at 4. I could have bought a half a point and got 4. But the point being that you got the best of the number. And there's going to be games along the way where you may be getting a game where one of your 5 has -2.5 and the other 4 have -3. So now when that game wins by 3, which there's a good chance it may, you now won your bet, right? Or God forbid if it's the opposite of that and you actually get the best of the number to get a push, that's 220 you saved. So having multiple accounts, if you want to be a winner, like, look, I have customers to this day and they bet big. They have one account. They bet with one guy. They're betting still really with the bookie guy. That's their out, what their line is. And sometimes their line is bad. And I'll have to be like, look, we just skipped that game. You don't have to just bet a game just to bet a game. If you have one line, then one outlet, that's where you're going to be sitting. So you got to be careful to bet with one line. You have to win 53.4%, I think it is, to be break even, right? So if you pick 100 games, you go 53 and 47, you broke even. Okay. There's people that buy my picks that if they went that, they would be like, man, thank you, this is the greatest season because they didn't lose any money. Okay, they've always won, but if that's literally what they tell me. Look, if you could just get breaking even, my wife will. I'll be able to sit and watch football all day long as I do that. And if I make a few bucks, she'll really love me. But if you have one outlet, you're gonna either push or lose some close games. Where you could have pushed or won those games. So that's the most important factor. And then, like I said, we talked about it a little bit ago, but the money management. Don't fool yourself. I know everybody thinks they're great. My favorite thing in life was when, do you remember when Moneymaker won in poker? The big tournament out here. So yeah. I've always played poker my whole life, but again, you can't get into other things like that in my head. In the summer, I could maybe do it for a little bit because I've been off in the summer for most of my career. But the bottom line is, as soon as he won, every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there was like, man, I could do this, right? Because he was just a novice player. He just kind of got lucky for the most part. He did. So it's the same thing with sports betting. My funny thing is everybody's got this system covered. This is my year. And it's like Dallas Cowboy fans. This is my year. And I have to say that because I'm a Redskins fan. But you know how people do that, right? It's my year. First week, by the third week, sure, if you're Dallas, you're pretty good. So it's not done in the third week. But some teams you're like, oh, that's all she wrote. Week 3, I'm a Royals fan too, if you see this hat here. So that takes me about a month. And then you're like, well, there's always next year. But when you're betting on teams that in this situation are very good teams, okay, there's always going to be a couple that don't work out. They don't pan out. Injuries in football especially will kill you. There's not too many shocking teams that don't play up to caliber in say, college basketball. NBA is a weird league, so it's an up and down. So money management and the betting accounts is probably my 2. If you can do those 2 things, you will have an opportunity, even if you pick them on your own. Because like I said, everybody could pick them on their own by week 4. Then they're calling me and they're like, well, you're winning. It looks like you know what you're doing and I don't. So I'm going to buy your picks. And you're like, okay, just do what I give you and try not to just throw out another 50 extra picks a week, because I've won many a week over my career. And when people used to call on the phone, now everybody gets them off a computer or a text. Some people still call, but when everybody used to call, and guys, you could be 9-1 for the weekend and they're calling for the Monday night game. You're like, you're like, hey, hello. And they say who it is. And you're like, hey man, how you doing? I'm all upbeat. I just had a big week. And you're like, oh, terrible. And you're like, what do you mean? Tough weekend. And you're like, we went 9-1. And they're like, yeah, I know, but I bet another 14 games and I lost 13 of them, so that's what's good. And that happened before prop bets. So that's why when I see these prop bets and all these betting shows now, that's the other big thing to be careful. This would be my tip. You got a show on ESPN. Okay. Last year, the girl was a sideline reporter. Now she's an expert, one of the top expert handicappers in the country. What? That'd be like me being, I make peanut butter and jelly good and pasta good. And all of a sudden a cooking show calls me and they just put me on and they're like, yeah, this Gary Greene, he's a top chef. How? I'm not though. But if they say it and I go along with it, I guess it's true then, right? It'll pan out that they won't be. A lot of these betting networks now, just, again, it's not the end of the world, but they have this beautiful girl on that's going to host, or they have these people on. And they think it's entertainment and they're giving out 20 prop bets in all these games. You guys ain't betting $10. You're betting more than they are probably. So you got to be careful. All these guys writing out, all these websites. I read a lot of articles just to see what people are writing. And there's so many guys that by the third week, I'm going to read their articles and I'm going to say, you did not even watch that game because you look at the final score. And that's the other thing. Another tip would be looking at box scores. Just because somebody wins 38-7 does not mean it was a 38-7 type game. Okay. That 7 team that got in the scoreboard got killed may have actually had a better performance than that. And maybe they even, had 500 yards to 300. But I'll give you an example. Nevada last Saturday night against New Mexico had like 200 yards of offense. They won the game 23-12. Basically, you're saying, wow, won by double digits. This team's pretty good. No, they stink. In fact, they may be one of the worst teams in the country. They caught the worst team, New Mexico State, basically. So that's why I'm saying that scores can be deceiving. The guy I have my most fun with in football, and I'll do it all year, every year until the guy's done. But Kirk Cousins. Kirk never won never won a big game in his life. Okay, but they still talk about his being his top quarterback in the league. He's not. Never won nothing. So you never won nothing. Lamar Jackson, I guess you won MVP, but I don't know how many playoff wins you got. Not many. One. There's some guys with none, and you're just like, you never won anything. But when you're going to bet on games, if you have these guys that never won anything and then you lose, you can't be that surprised. I want winners. You remember who said that? I want winners. Mike Singletary. I want winners. Okay, I want winners too, because winners win me money. Losers don't. And a guy like Kirk Cousins, you look at the final box score and you'll be like, oh, he threw for 320 yards. But follow box scores in the first half too. See what the yardage is. So when he's way behind and he's getting prevent defenses and he's knocking in yardage, they still lose by 10 points, but he gets 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's actually got great receivers, so he should be pretty good. There's a lot of other guys that are on lower level teams that wish they had that wide receiver group, but that's why I say that scores can be deceiving too. So sometimes you got to be inside and I'll tell you what, if you don't do that, come to the site every week, betvegas.tv. I do it. I do it for you. I will show articles that say deceiving box scores. I will do the work for you. I'm going to do all the homework for you. If you want to bet on your own, if you just don't want to do any work, like kid doesn't want to go to college where you're not going to learn anything. You're not getting a degree. You're not, you're not going to go. You're not going to learn. You got to learn. If you don't want to learn and do the work that I provide for you for free for the most part, and you want to buy the picks, then that's okay too. I understand that a lot of people, I have guys that bet 10,000 a game that they're on commission, so they call. And they call the next day. And the funniest thing is they say, how did we do yesterday? They're going to call tonight at some point, 2, 3 o'clock tonight. And they're going to say, hey, Gary, how did we do yesterday? They didn't even check it. They're not even checking it. And it's kind of hilarious. You know what I mean? That they don't care. They're not really a fan. I kind of use this as Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's the richest guy in the world, right? But he has to gamble every day. He's in Vegas all the time. He's at casinos playing blackjack. It's in you. You know what I mean? Some people actually the live and die of watching the games is exciting. It's fun. I mean, you imagine horse bettors. It's 2 minutes. Your bet's over in 2 minutes, right? But the good thing is, as soon as the gate race is over, there's another one, and you don't even have to be at a track where when I was a kid there was 13 races, so there was 20-minute break in between. When you're in all these casinos now because of the simulcast, there's another race going probably off in 2 minutes. If you go quick enough, you could get into action again and again. But that's why nobody wants that sport either. That's a tough racket, that horse racing.
Man, the horse racing was always, I went to a couple of times to the races and I learned real quick, no matter how many times I looked at that little, the little program they give you with all the little numbers in there and how many furlongs and what kind of medication the horses are on. And so I still was horrible at that.
That's a tough. Listen, I've done that since I was about 15 years old. I had a horse track about 27 minutes from my house in New Jersey, freehold. And, we went every day. We just went every day. It was an afternoon thing. And we loved it in the summertime. And then as soon as I got to be 17, that's all I did was gamble for a living. But we went 3-4 times a week. And I know how to read the form and everything, but it's another sport that, like in a way I say my magazine is kind of like that racing form for horse bettors. They're helping you, right? They gave you everything that you need, but then you got to use that stuff to your advantage. My magazine is going to help you in a lot of ways, especially look back, like the 5-year histories on one of the pages. You can see, like last night, how Purdue or Penn State, who won the last 5 years. So you might want to look at that and say, hey, if this team A, say Purdue, won 4 years in a row or 5 years in a row, but this year they're down, Penn State's good. Those kids remember, like in a lot of rivalries, contests, the kids that have not won in 3 years that are on for 4 years, they don't have, that's a big game. Like Michigan, those kids last year against Ohio State, they never beat them. They want to get one win under their belt. So, when they come out and play inspired, and in that case, Michigan upset, and it was called an upset, beating Ohio State that day. That's one of those situations. So there's so many situations. None automatically make, like, just because one thing happens doesn't automatically make me make a bet. But I'm also I'm old school. All handicappers now are what I call new wave, new school. My way of handicapping is first thing. When I'm watching that game tape, offensive line versus defensive line. I don't care what you got. If you can't block, and if these guys that come in for Tom Brady can't play, he's not going to be the Tom Brady we know. I don't care if he's Tom Brady. It's been good. Last year, Tom Brady, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen were number 1 at their position. Number 1, 3 of the 5. Me and you could do pretty good as a quarterback in that situation compared to some poor kid at Houston, maybe say it has the worst offensive line. He's running for his life all day. And then you say, well, he's no good. Well, maybe he is pretty good. Maybe if he was playing on Tampa Bay, you'd say, man, this kid's a lot better than I thought, type of thing. So offensive line, defensive line matchups. We all know the quarterback. We all know the running backs, the wide receivers. We know the big name defensive players, the Aaron Donalds who dominate the game. We know all that. But the bottom line is, how is your offensive line against another team's defensive line? And for years, I used to do shows in the casino in Vegas, and we would talk about week after week, average line weight for Ohio State, 317 across the board, right? And then they're playing this Ball State, and the average offensive line, 263. And you're like, they got a 50-pound man advantage. Look, that's boys men against boys, right? So,
Absolutely.
so again, that's why the spread probably is that high too, for most cases. But there's nothing you can do. And the bottom line of the good teams is they pull the starters, and the second string guys again are first stringers for the 11th ranked team on. They're just not first stringer on their team because they're a top 5 type of team or a top 10 team. So offensive line matchup, but that's a lot harder to do if you don't know what you're watching. You don't know really the full spectrum of watching game tapes. So, and you got to put in the time. I tell everybody, if you put in 18 hours a day like me, and decide you want to have no life and never sleep, you probably could do pretty good. You know what I mean? You have to have some knowledge of what you're doing. Like, I don't have the knowledge. I don't think if I spent 16 hours following horses that I could still win. I'd be honest with you. But there's probably other things in life I could excel at if I put this much time into it. But, like my friends are off, hey, come on, we're going to play video games. You're like, no, I'm not playing at video games. I got no time for that. In the summer, I would go play, but they're so good and I suck. Why would I play? They kick my ass. That's not fun.
No, that's true, though. Hey, so the last question we had for the show was, again, I know you kind of talked a little bit at the beginning about your magazine and all the offers and things that you have. Could you just tell us one more time for those who may have just joined?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple of things, though. Everybody, if you go to betvegas.tv, sign up for my email club. It's absolutely free. And that club, you're going to get a chance to win prizes. You're going to get a lot of extra stuff in there that you won't see on the site. And that's free. Just go sign up. It's fun. As long as I have your name and a phone number and your email, if you win a prize, I'm not tracking you down. I don't want to have to say whatever. I need your email and your phone number, and I'll send. Eventually have to get your address if you win. But I'll send you. I'll send you prizes in the mail. We'll do that. We've been doing that for 30 years. I used to do it at the casinos, and now I do it on the different shows and on that website off of that free email club. So sign up for that. That's free. And then like I said, you have the first week, this whole weekend of college football and baseball and WNBA through Wednesday it's $99. But if you use ASAP one, you'll get those for $49. And also a special, if there's anybody watching that they want to come on board for the whole season, my season cost is a little higher than a lot of other places, but it's $2,500 for the season. That's every pick, NFL and college, right to the Super Bowl. Okay. And you get the baseball, whatever I have, and then playoffs, and then other sports, like I said, if they're going on WNBA or whatever. So right now, if you use the code ASAP50, you can get the entire season for 50% off. So we're just starting. So you've missed a few games, but you will literally get my entire 2022-23 football, NFL, college, every pick, every best bet. There's no extra money. There's no more money for a best bet. If I'm selling that possibly on the site the last few years, I didn't even do it because I didn't want to get into it because it's a lot of extra work. You're making money, but selling one pick, people will buy it because it's affordable. But you would get every best bet too. You don't pay that price and then I come back. 9 out of 10 guys in this business, after you buy that, then they say, no, the bigger plays are extra. It's not extra. You'll get everything I got. And hopefully, like I said, you'll get more outs. And some days, I have people that literally will have a bookie that last night when that Purdue game I lost, they got 4. They got 4 because they had multiple outs, multiple bookies, and they got the 4 and they pushed. So they didn't even lose the game. You know what I mean? And they're paying me on commission. They could have easily told me no. I always believe in good karma. Treat everybody good and it'll come back to you. And, I donate pretty much half of the salary that I make every year to charity. I have a lot of charities. So, I try to give back. But if you wanted to come on for the whole season, that would be the best time. But even if you want to just try this first week, it's $49. Give it a ride. And then and then all year long we'll do different things. But I usually do that. I'll probably do that special for the football next week too, because NFL hasn't started. Because of the holiday, it's funny. Things have gotten much bigger, especially with TV games. You're going to have Clemson and Georgia Tech Monday, LSU, Florida State, which is a nice game on Sunday, standalone games. But people are on vacation until Labor Day, till that weekend ends. That's why NFL got smart, and that's why they don't start till the whole week after, because they want every damn viewer. They're not stupid. And just a note to everybody. This is important because a lot of people might not realize this, but the Thursday night football games, the first week is going to be where you can get it. Mostly everybody's cable has the NFL Network, right? And Channel 3, or for me, it's Channel 3, NBC, right?
Right.
Well, week 2 on, Amazon bought that game. You're not getting that game on your TV unless you buy Amazon Prime, okay? So don't wait till the last second to where the game's coming on and you're like, where the hell's the game? You know, you're going to, and they're deking you almost with giving you the first game for free. You're still getting it. They'll probably pub it that night and you'll learn a little bit, but I'm trying to tell people, you know, you're going to have to go on and go through that process. And this NFL just sold out, just like baseball. I had to buy Peacock Network and, I forget the other two.
I know one of the MLB, I think, has their own.
That's automatic. You know, the DirecTV has been a monopoly for 30 years. You know, you can't get all the NFL games unless you have that. But like baseball, the Peacock. You know, I'm a Phillies fan, so Sunday morning you see, and you're like, oh, this game's on Peacock. I can't even get it on the Major League Baseball package that I paid. So you're going to have to, and eventually you're going to have to pay that $5 to Peacock. You're going to have to pay it to the $14, I guess it is, to Amazon Prime. And there's one more. I don't know why it's leaving my head, but you're going to have to pay for these things if you want to watch everything. You know, for the most part, ESPN's pretty good. Even on the computer, the lower level games that you don't see on TV, they're on that ESPN3. But you know, most games are televised now, which is great. That's a big help to everybody. But they found a way. These, you know, I'm not happy about it because for the average Joe guy, you're just making it tougher and tougher on him, you know, just to watch games. And you know, you're gonna have to, if you want to watch Thursday night football this year all year, you're gonna have to have that Amazon Prime. So don't wait till the last minute, because might even take a while to process. Just like DirecTV, when everybody waits till this NFL Sunday games come on an hour before. If you ever did that, you're not getting through. You're not getting them games. You're not getting hooked up in that. You got to do that days ahead of time. So don't delay. You'll be happy that you know, I told you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, Gary, we from the NASAP Network, we appreciate you coming on. This is Gary Greene from Betvegas. Is there anything else you want to tell the viewers before we head out of here, Gary?
No, just have a great season. Like I said, bet with your head. Don't over it. Don't bet what you can't afford to lose. And like I said, if you come to the website, betvegas.tv, it's also, I didn't do it yet. I have to transfer it from my other site, but it's garywins.com too, which is kind of easy to remember. I think I have betvegas.tv.com too. So I got to look at all these things. We just did it this summer, but betvegas.tv, stop back all year. There's a free pick every day. Most midweek days is going to be baseball until the end of baseball. But we'll try to make you some money. Hopefully we can continue to keep, you know, beating the books and having a little fun with it, make some profit at the same time. But I enjoyed being on with you guys and appreciate it.
Yes, sir. This is Jay McLovin. Again, that's Gary Greene from betvegas.tv. I encourage you to check him out. Get those picks. You'll probably be thankful for it. And if I can get $50 from the wife, Gary, I don't know, but I'm a damn sure try.
I might be able to work something out with you.
Bet, because I'm not smart enough to bet. So I'm going to have to come to somebody like you to help save my marriage.
Yeah, and trust me, the wives love you if you win. So, you know,
yeah, they
got to
run you
win.
out of town if you lose.
You got to win first. But if you don't use money management, even when you win, you ain't going to win. You're going to find a way to give it all back. And that's why the casinos, people think that the casino is some genius guy that can't lose at games. They lose. There's a lot of big professionals that have beat them for many years. But the small guys, 17 parlays, it sounds great to bet $20 and you're going to win, $1,000. But the bottom line is it's tough enough to win one game. Going 7-0 in a same day is nearly impossible. So I wish I could do it. I may do it over the course of the season. I almost pulled it off here for 2 days, but it shows you it's not, it's not easy. Betting is not easy, and that just plays into the casino's hand. If you're betting big parlays, sounds good, but you're going to be a loser in the long run.
There you have it, folks. Gary Greene again, Bet Vegas. Jay McLovin, ASAP in the morning. Don't forget to check out Unscripted Saturday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, we're out of here. You guys have a good afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Whole sports, all plays. Yeah. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we're making a plays. We're talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation.